Welcome to the Dream On podcast. I am Travis Gentry.
And I'm Julia Gentry.
And we are, if you're watching, we are in our new home, in a new state, in our new studio. And it's awesome.
It is awesome.
Yeah.
You look good today.
Yeah, thank you.
Do you like our glow? I love it.
Illuminated background.
Illuminated background. If you're not watching, you should go watch it right now. We're illuminated. Don't look at the light though.
All right, so let's jump right in. So we like to start off the podcast with a question off the cuff that the other person doesn't know, and we go back and forth and ask each other a question. So I think it's my turn. If not, I'm gonna go anyway. So my question today for you is, now having 5 kids, what has been the most challenging thing and what has been the greatest thing that that's come about having now 5 kids?
I think the greatest thing is, well, it's interesting because you and I will say, like, we never really I never felt this, I want to be a mom. Like, that was not a desire of my heart. Mm-hmm. Mine was always a long-term, in 20 years, I don't want to be at a Thanksgiving table with just you. I love you, but I see a full Thanksgiving dinner table. I see a full Christmas dinner table. I see a very full house. So when we started having kids, it was never this oh my gosh, now's the time and I feel so ready to be a mom. And that wasn't it. It was definitely a long-term goal. And so I think that now having 5 kids, check, right? I can see that now we're making decisions based upon where we're going, but the fullness of that is happening every day. And I do love that.
Fullness is happening.
Fullness is happening every day. So the best part of it is that, truly the energy, the love, the connectedness, the communication, the friendship, the relationships, we are building our 20-year plan right now. And that to me is just the coolest, most honoring.
We're putting in the work.
We're putting in the work. We're doing that. The hardest part is that there's 5 of them. I find myself sometimes saying no, because if I say yes to one of them, we have to say yes to all of them,
Or at least 4 of them now.
But the idea is still the same. If Nixon's I want to sleep with you tonight, everything in me wants to be yes, of course you can sleep with us. But then you're no, that's 5 people in our bed.
Or Roxy, 5 nights in a row.
Roxy gets a vote too, yeah. So it feels like the hardest part sometimes is that I want to do certain things, or if I want to go run an errand and you're okay, yeah, I'll just take Aslan. Well, it feels like it's this huge debate, because then I have to tell Malachi no and Nixon no, and then I got to tell him why, and now I'm I'm just going to go by myself. I'm not even going to go. Actually, I'm not even going to run that errand. I don't need to run the errand anymore. I think that's the hardest part. Is that you have to be so strategic, and I find myself saying no when I really want to be saying yes, and so that's, I think, just hard to do. Yeah,
it is so true, because we were just talking about this the other day, and there's these protein cookies that we like, and you say yes to one, and it's not just one, it's 4.
Yeah, and Malachi goes, well, why can't I?
Or 5 if we want one, and then 6.
Yeah.
And you do that a couple times a week.
It's $18 for one yes. You guys, we get these protein cookies, they're $3, and they're amazing, and they're really good, but they're $3 a cookie, which is fine until there's 6 of us that want one every other day, and now you go from $18 a day to, times 10, times 12, it starts to add up.
Yep.
And so it just feels like there's more. I know you and I, we do say yes a lot as parents. We're trying to be very mindful in that, but it just feels like there's more yeses I want to be able to give. But when you have this many kids, you just have to say
pick
no.
Your yeses wisely.
Pick your yeses more wiser than you would normally, I guess is what I would say.
Totally.
So, but on that note, we are going to be talking today about the yeses in life, and really ultimately how to love your life. And I'm almost sad to be talking about this today. And it's funny because I was thinking about this topic, because this shouldn't be a topic that people are going to go, oh, I need to listen to that. Because in theory, we should all really love our lives. And unfortunately, it's a huge topic that we need to be talking about, because most people don't love their life. And And what we're also going to be sharing today is because I've had so many people reach out in the Facebook group and on social media going, Arkansas, tell us, how are you in Arkansas? And do you love it? And how did you do it? And how did you make it happen? And people are fascinated by the life that you and I are living. I hear all the time, people are so inspired by our lives, and they're not inspired by theirs. And so that's why we're doing this podcast episode today, is we want to talk about loving your life.
Yeah, the number one thing I get on the Arkansas is when I tell someone that we've just moved here, like if I'm meeting someone at the park or anywhere, I'm like, yeah, we just moved here, and they're like, well, where are you from? And then they're like, well, oh, like a job?
Oh, it's Walmart.
Yeah, Walmart's here, but they're like, oh, like a job transfer or job? And I'm like, no, like we just moved here just because we wanted to. It was a choice, but also that choice has taken a decade to get to this point where we can make that choice. And I think that's what, like, going into this topic is that if you didn't, it's not that you're going to love your life every second of the day, but are you making the choices to get closer to the life that you truly want?
Okay, but here's what I think about that. If I am doing that, then why wouldn't I love every minute of every day? Like, if I'm actually making decisions based upon what I want most, even in the midst of the hard, even in the midst of the push-up, right? All the things that we don't always like, I think that has to be the mindset shift, is that if I'm actually chasing the desires of my heart and going after it, then I should be loving it. And not because I'm there, but because I'm on my way, on the journey, in pursuit, in alignment. And I feel like that's what most of us are missing.
Totally. Okay, so can we be just real and candid here?
No, let's not.
Let's be fake and phony, okay?
Welcome to the Fake and Phony podcast, where everything we talk about is false.
No, but this could get real, like raw. So you say that, but I know that you're specifically on a journey right now that you know where you want to be. You want to be a best-selling author, a national speaker, a sought-out speaker. And through this process, you're doing things to get to that point, because the way technology and the way the world is now, and social media is a huge platform for you to be able to get to that point quicker. You don't love that.
Okay, but keep going.
So you don't love putting out the videos. It's taken years for you, and we've started and stopped, even with the podcast, and now that you're like on this mission and something has clicked and changed. But just yesterday, there again, you don't love it, but you know where you're going. So what I was saying earlier is that you're gonna have to do, there again, we say it all the time, pick your hard. So if you want this result, you have to go through certain things that you're not gonna love every second of it. So explain that then.
So good. Okay, great. So when I think of love your life, and I'm going to go back to a couple of comments that I've been watching on the Instagram thread as of late. Constantly people are going, I'm so inspired by your life. I'm so inspired by your life. I'm so inspired by your life. And I think we do that. Like, we're looking at everybody else's lives going, I'm so inspired by your life. And what we should be doing is, what is the life that would inspire me, right? Like, how can I be inspired by my own life? If I take that a step further, I think that the magic that we're wanting, the fire that we're wanting, the aliveness that we're wanting is in the work we're avoiding. Ask me how I know. So on paper, I hate these videos. Not this one today. I actually love this because I'm talking to Travis. Not this moment. I don't hate these. I hate the vulnerability of all these shorts and all this, like that goes back to a whole laundry list of limiting beliefs and things that I know that God is walking me on this journey to run right through, to be totally free. On paper, I hate it. And I said that to you yesterday. I hate this. And yet, it's like, in the Bible, that Jesus says in the joy set before him, he endured the cross. Like, if you really think about that. And yet I love it because I love who it's making me, Trav. Like, I honestly have never felt more alive, and sometimes intense. And I'm not saying that it's like it's like this, like, oh my gosh, I'm the picture perfect woman and wife and mom, and No, but I am feeling alive in a way that I've never felt before, right? That maybe I was turning to alcohol, or I was hiding, or I was not doing the video, or, right, that was a little bit more of that comfort. But I wasn't feeling love or joy or fire or any of those things even 6 months ago. And so it's interesting because when I look at, to your point, 10 years of doing all of these things that have got us to where we are today, where we can say like we love our life, is because all of those were inching us closer. Like every time we've stepped up to the plate and started to do the hard things towards what we wanted, like there's an aliveness and a fire and a love on the other side of it. And I love that.
You're changing your like viewpoint. Like you're changing what it means, what it is, and it's still uncomfortable.
100%.
It's still not always easy.
Yeah.
Because doing some of the things that you're doing, like you're in the moment, you're like, oh, I need to capture this because it showcases like our life and your life and where you're going and what you're doing. And so it's a process that you now are embracing, but it's also still not like, it's becoming second nature, but it's still a thought. I think at some point it's going to shift and it's just what you do.
Yeah.
But because there's been limiting beliefs and so much behind it for you to start to do that and get going, you've had to work through and come face to face with some of those limiting beliefs, or like the thing under the thing.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny that you say that though, because I think maybe what we unpack is that word love. You know, like I really think that we overlook the power of that word, right? Like it's not comfortable. Like even if we talk about marriage, you know, or we talk about, the Bible talks about what love is and what love isn't. I think a lot of us think that love is going to be easy, and love is convenient, and love is comfortable, and love is you doing everything that I want you to do, and it's this picture perfect marriage and we're happy all the time. And that's not what love is. Love is unconditional. Love is in the hard. Love is in the refining. Love is in that moment when we go, I don't get what you're saying, or that hurt my feelings, or is this what you want? Is this what I want? You know, like I think that we need a refresh on even that word when we think about love your life. I think we think about that picture perfect Pinterest board. That's not what love is. Love is so much deeper and richer. I mean, in the Bible, it says, above all things, love. Like, without love, you're just a clinging symbol. So I think that when we even consider living the life you love, it unpacks a huge can of worms to go, do we even know what love actually is?
Or your definition of love.
100%.
The word that you're using, what is that definition? And that definition can mean a bunch of different things for a bunch of different people.
Yes. And I'm trying to find this quote on what this means, and I'll just keep perusing while we're doing it, because I think that I think it's a C.S. Lewis quote, but it says that love is, there's something around that it's a piece of will too. Like it's not automatic that I choose it every day. It's maintained by will and it's practiced in habit. Totally butchered it. But the idea here is that it's a choice. It's a conscious choice every day. It's then going to be sustained by like the continual opportunity to choose it. And then it's maintained through habit. Like it's not a feeling, you know, that's there it is too. Like love isn't a feeling. So I love my life. I don't always feel comfortable. I love you, and you don't always say what I want you to say. You know, I love.
Yeah,
like, yesterday, Travis dropped a few bombs on me yesterday when we were walking on our date. That I was like, you need to explain that to me real fast. Yeah, like because I think love again when it's unconditional is like I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm going to stand with you in the hard, and so I think that to me it is loving your life is not a cheap bumper sticker that we buy. I think it has to start with that. This is who I am because of whose I am, right? Like I have to have an identity that's really focused on I'm a child of God, period, and He loves me unconditionally, period. Then I actually get to run towards the target, the promise, the dream, the vision for my life, which means we have to get clear on what that is. And then every decision that I make in between now and that has to be in alignment towards that, maintained by will, focus, choice, like choosing towards that every day, even when I don't want to or don't feel like it. That's when that's when we're going to feel the fire and the energy and the aliveness, is when we commit to doing that.
So, and that's why most people, and that's what we're hyper aware of, is the emotion behind it. And so it's easy to say, well, I love my life. And it's putting in perspective of like, yeah, there's things that make me feel uncomfortable and make me, that I don't love, or like I don't enjoy the process of it.
Yeah.
But it's who I know I'm going to become.
Yeah.
And even if I never reach the goal, like if I want to lift 1,000 pounds, I'm never going to get to that point of lifting 1,000 pounds, but I get to 800 pounds. Like how much better off I am that I started that journey to get to that 800 pounds, as opposed to settling and complaining and procrastinating on lifting 100 pounds.
Totally. And so I think that ultimately the way that I've seen you and I love our lives, and what I would tell the simple, stupid, hard answer for someone is, you will love your life when you stop avoiding the thing that you want the most. Like the only way out is through. It's actually spending time getting clear on what you want most, like your life depends on it, because it does. Like the Bible says this in Romans, the whole world is waiting in anticipation for the children of God to show up and go, this is what I want to do. This is the fire I want to bring. This is the peace of heaven that I want to bring, whether it's in my family or my career, like whatever it is. This is not about how big, it's about how real. Like the whole world is waiting for that. And so the love that we're wanting, the alive, the fire, the unconditional, the real, the raw, the vulnerable, is on the other side of just saying yes to that. Like even if I think about our trip these last couple of weeks, you guys, here now we're going to get real. Okay. It was actually, the trip from Bend to Arkansas was actually really good, considering that we moved our entire family across the country. We packed a house with 5 kids under the age of 9, running our own businesses. Like we actually did really good. People like, how many hours in the car? That's 28 hours if we didn't stop, but it really took us like
a week.
Granted, we stopped in between and all that. But if you think of, here's Zion, who's 3, who's newly potty trained. We have a 7-month-old who most 7-month-olds don't sit in the car longer than, 7 minutes. Like we have 2 cars. We're towing 2 U-Hauls behind us. We have 3 pods that are going to be delivered. Like there's a lot of moving pieces to that. And then we get here in a town I've personally never been to. You've been one time, right? Like we're pulling up to a house that we've physically never seen, in a neighborhood like I've never been to. Even when we stopped at Chick-fil-A, people are like, "Oh, where do you live?" I was like, "Bentonville." They're like, "Well, you're in Bentonville." I'm like, I don't know here, like here. And then we're unpacking, and there's boxes upon boxes upon boxes. It's just us unpacking. Like I'm saying all this because there's a ton of details, and we're wrestling with our control issues and our get it done faster issues, and are our kids in the way, or are they helping? And like there's so much to this, and it wasn't perfect, and there's moments that my Hulk showed up, and I look back and I'm like, I have never felt so alive. Like I felt aware, I felt alive, I was paying attention, like I was consciously incompetent and consciously competent. And like I felt this, I don't know, like it just, that buzz that I was looking for in all these other things for so many years was found in doing the things that we wanted most.
And I think there again, coming back to, what we've said before, is that this has been a practice though for us too. Like this wasn't like the first time we've ever done it. So logistically, I took that on, and I know what to do. I know how to coordinate that. I know what we need to do. We kind of changed it a few different times based off of kind of a few variables that came up last minute. But it was like, okay, if this happens, then we adjust and we do this. But this has been a decade in the making, there again, of getting to this place and being comfortable moving to an area that we really haven't spent that much time, and in a house that we haven't seen before. But those have all been practices.
Yeah.
And so it gets easier as we've done that, even with 5 kids. And so as you're saying all that, it's there again. It's like, I could imagine for someone to think of like, I've been here for 10 years or 15 or 20 years, and now I'm going to think about moving somewhere else. Like, how in the world have you done that? Well, we've done it multiple times. That's why it seems easy from our perspective. Is it easy? No, but we've practiced it.
Yeah, which I think is a huge point to this whole process, right? Of like, how do I love my life? Well, you start practicing loving your life. Not when I get there, not when I get to Arkansas, when I buy the house, when I have the job I want, when I'm married, when I lose the 30 pounds. Like that's cheap. You know, like just to love your life when everything is perfect. Again, going back to my original point, that's not love, right? That's lust. Like that's, oh, I like the idea of a sexy body and a sexy marriage and a sexy house and all those things. And great. I'm not saying that we don't want a picture of what we want when it's done, but that's not love. Love is that consciousness to practice it before you feel it.
Yeah. And loving, and we've talked about this on other podcasts too, but it's so important that most people, like the analogy is if you're driving in a car and the rear view mirror is like, 5% of what you're looking at relative to the actual windshield where you're going. But most people spend the majority of their time looking at that 5% in the past and wanting and wishing it could be, or physically, I want to have that body when I was 20 or 18. I wish I could go back, in time, as opposed to saying, no, like it is what it is. I am where I am, and what do I want?
Yeah.
And then also recognizing like you evolve and change, but most people hold on to the way it has been, as opposed to saying, how can it be? It's like watching our kids in the evolution of like Malachi and playing with, Thomas the Train, and then Paw Patrol, and then the Avengers action figures. And now he's reading, and he's on like this super kick of reading these books, and he's just devouring them, which is amazing. But it's like, it's an evolution.
Yeah.
But most people look in the past as opposed to saying like, okay, maybe I don't fully love who I am right now, or who I've become, or I've gotten off track, or I've gotten further away from God and my faith, or I've gained 15 pounds. So now you know where you're at, and coming back to like, what would make me love my life?
So good. I think, okay, so that's huge. So if you are at a place today that you go, I don't love my life, I don't love the choices that I'm making, I don't love who I've become, that makes you human, right? Like been there, done that. How many times have you and I looked at ourselves and each other and gone, this is not going to work? I mean, I can almost see 2 handfuls of moments that you and I are looking at each other going, no, like, I don't love this. I don't love who I'm becoming. And I think you're right. At that moment, that's actually that choice where you go, wait a minute, then I need to re-engage and get really clear on what do I want then? What would I love? Like, what will it look like to be connected to who God's created me to actually be, so I can actually start making decisions based upon that versus just looking in the past. And you said this to me the other day when we were at dinner, and I was sharing with you that, man, this is hard. This is vulnerable. This is hard. And I brought up all my daddy issues, and you looked at me and you go, how long are you going to keep looking at the past? And I was like, you talking to me? Like it was just one of those moments that you're like, Julia, you're literally looking at your past and you're throwing it on your future. And it just sat with me because I didn't realize I was looking in the rearview mirror. I didn't realize that I was now not loving the way that I was showing up, doing the hard things, simply because you were right. I'm looking at the past and I'm dragging it with me. And you're like, how long are you going to let the past impact your decisions on how you're going to show up now? And it was just one of those simple, like, right, truth bombs that was like, dang, that's huge. So I think, if we're looking at our past, or you don't even like your present, I think that you still have an opportunity now, today.
100%. And we've reinvented, and for me, just reinventing myself, and I'm not right now doing anything with real estate, but that's been who I have been for the last decade. That's been my identity. That was my talk track. That's who I was. If I meet someone, I say, I'm a real estate investor. And I've caught myself when we've had this conversation of like, I have thrown that in there of like, oh, I'm a equities trader and I'm a real estate investor because that's who I'm used to being. Mm-hmm. And so over the last year, and I'm still like, reinventing myself and being comfortable of like, no, this is what I want. Yeah. And I'm over 40 and I'm reinventing myself to step into something that I want to do. Mm-hmm. And that could change in 5 years or 10 years, or I could bring back in real estate. But here's where I'm at. Here's where I want to go. And that's all the steps I need.
Yeah.
And so I don't look for myself looking back and saying like, shoulda, woulda, coulda, because I miss big opportunities in real estate and riding the wave of everything that's happened. But I see bigger and greater opportunity in what I'm doing and where I'm going and the freedom and the time and everything that it's going to create, that I'm latching onto that as opposed to looking in the past and coulda, shoulda, woulda, and I think so often, and I hear you say this like with your clients, and we hear it all the time of like, most people don't love what they're doing. Mm-hmm. They've signed themselves up for a career, a job that they don't love. They want something different. They want to pursue a totally different industry, but they're stuck in this mental prison, and they won't allow themselves to be set free.
Oh man.
And it's time to rethink and look at it differently of like, if you don't love your life, why? Yeah. And what would make you love your life?
Yeah, which are big questions, right? But they're the ones that are the most deserving to answer. Sometimes the simplest questions are the biggest ones to be asking and have the most profound difference if we will create some margin to answer those, right? Like even that, like, okay, I don't love my job. Well, what do I want? I don't know what I would want. Well, what you don't love is just as important as what you do love. What you don't want is just as important what you do want, right? And I think that this is, if we go back to a relationship, right? The goal of a relationship is connection. So you and I, the goal, that what's made our marriage incredible is not that we're perfect, though I'm pretty darn close, I would say.
Yeah.
Is that we are committed to our connection with each other. So when we make mistakes, we learn more about each other. Like even to your point, when you've made mistakes in your past of even like what you want or what you don't want, or in our marriage of what we like or what we don't like, that's an opportunity to lean in and to learn and to love, because we're building trust, because we're figuring out what we like and what we don't like, what works and what doesn't, right? Like the journey along the way, the mistakes, the failures, like all of those things are leading us towards a greater depth of love, a greater depth of trust. So as you start to run the race ahead of us, right, that we're connected with like lessons, like there's depth in that, right? It's like a layering effect of like, now I love you so much because I've also learned to trust you so much because I've been connected to your journey, that like we're in the process of building the life that we love, even in those moments.
Continually, like it's a never gonna stop.
Yeah.
And I think that for most of us, and how I've seen it, like growing up in my 20s or whatever, it's like when I get there, then everything's gonna fall into place, and life will be complete. And then you get there and you're like, no, like there's more to life. Life to me is a journey and a process of discovering yourself and rediscovering yourself, and from not being married to being married to having kids to moving, like all these things add to the experiences, but it adds to who we have become and are becoming, and that doesn't stop until we are no longer breathing.
Yeah, and I think what we don't recognize in this is that in order to love your life, you have to realize it's going to cost you something. It even says, like, Jesus says this to his disciples. He's like, you need to count the cost before you follow me. He gives them these examples of like, because the disciples were like, what do you mean count the cost? What do you mean? And he says, like, who would go to war without sitting down and actually counting the cost that you might die? And we need to think about the plans, and we need to think about our opponent, and we need to prepare and actually consider the hard. But nobody would do that. Or who would build a house and not count the cost of how long it's going to take and how many bricks it's going to take? And like, we have to count the cost. And I think that when we consider marriage or the life that we love, it's going to cost us something. Our pride, our ego, the addiction, right? Like,
and most of the time, and we've talked about this before, but most of the time, it is your pride and your ego.
100%.
That's the thing that's standing in your way from loving your life. Because you get to a point in life where it's like, well, I should have this figured out, or I should be better than this 20-some-year-old or 30-some-year-old or whatever age you're at. You think you should be something. And most people, if you stop thinking about what other people are thinking about you, because they don't really care. They care about themselves. And that's what you should do, is care about yourself and where you're going and your experiences, your life experiences, because it's a combination. What do I say? What's my word?
Accumulation.
A culmination of,
which is a combination of two different words.
Of life experiences that you then can give back to the world around you.
Yeah, and I think that's what I want to encourage someone today is, regardless of where you are, regardless of if you love your life right now or not, is that love is so much deeper than we think. This is not a Pinterest board, Instagram grid, Facebook picture perfect love. This is a deep, vulnerable, real, connected, on fire word that we're talking about here, right? And that it's the recognition, even to your point when you asked me early on, then, but why do you hate it? Well, but I love it because I love who it's making me and I know what it's costing me. Mm-hmm. And what it's cost me up until this point is getting sober. You know, it cost me, to your point, right, of dropping the identity that we used to have, right? It's cost me right now my pride. It cost me my ego. It cost me the fear that I hold on to, that I'm not going to be good enough and you're going to reject me. I've held on to that lie. Most of us would say, well, I don't want that. No, it's going to cost me that because it's protected me. Mm-hmm. It's protected me. So when we think about actually running towards our dreams and having the life that we love or the marriage we love, we have to recognize it's going to cost you something. Just like not, right? Like having a job that you hate, that costs you something. Costs you your soul, costs you your energy, right? Being overweight and not eating good, that's going to cost you something too. It's going to cost you your health. It's going to cost medical bills. So at some level, it's kind of that pick your cost. It's going to cost you something, but I think it would be good for us to A, get clear on what our dreams are and what we would love, regardless of if you love it right now or not. And then B is to go, I got to count the cost, because it's going to cost me something. So when I start chasing it and Jesus comes to me and goes, hey, I need that addiction. Hey, I need your fear. Hey, I need your identity. Hey, I need your ego. I need that we are not like offended by it.
100%. And what I would say, and this has been a journey that we've been on for the last 10 years, of like, go surround yourself or find people or the community that loves what they're doing and who they're becoming. Obviously, we have a community. We'd love you to be a part of it. Be around people that are going after their dreams and pursuing the love of their life.
Yeah, it's so good.
It's
because
so
it's
important.
Contagious. It's contagious.
So important, because depending on who you spend your time with is who you become in all areas, typically, physically, financially, spiritually. So go find the people and the community that have and is pursuing the life that you want.
So good. And then we'll just give a shameless plug, because we would never leave you hanging. We have completely and intentionally built 2 different types of communities that you can join. If you go to dreamers.community, you will find your first steps there, where you can actually get connected to our Facebook group and the conversation of dreamers everywhere who are committed and are starting on a journey to love their life. That's dreamers.community. Or you're ready to take it to the next level. Like, you heard something that Travis and I said, and regardless of your starting point today, but you're like, no, I want to feel alive. I want to feel the fire. I want to be buzzing in the right kind of way. Then we have a mastermind group that is called Dreamstorm. If you go to dreamstormwithjulia.com, you can learn all about it. It's incredible. I even got off the call last night and I came out and Travis goes, how'd it go? And I was like buzzing. You guys, like
the energy, and I wasn't in the room with her, but you can feel the energy and the emotion behind people that are on this call.
Oh my gosh.
So it's really cool. If you want to bring up your energy, if you feel like you're in a low frequency and around people that have low energy and Debbie Downers and negative Nancy's, then you need to be a part of people that have that energy. They may not be exactly where they want to go yet, but the energy is contagious, like you said, and being around people that their energy is like, no, I know who I am, I know where I'm going, and being around a supportive group of people is so powerful.
So powerful. So today we hope that you are not inspired by our lives. We want you to be inspired by yours. Don't love our life, love yours. And until next time, dream on.